stuck in the bed. Stuck in the bed. Stuck in the bed.
Hello, good morning, welcome.
Hi.
Today we're here with Mike and Casey and the Stuck in the Mail podcast and Sturgill Simpson, or his real name, John Sturgill Simpson, and Metamodern sounds and country music, which Mike has never heard before. Today, only heard of, I guess, right? Is that the,
Yeah, where have I been?
I don't know. I heard of this guy pretty late too. I think by the time I picked this album up, which came out in 2014, he was already on to his fourth album, which was a rock album. And we'll get more into that. So I was a latecomer too, but it's one of those names that you just heard a lot about. So to go into a little background here to start with, um, so his first two albums, High Top Mountain and the one we're covering today, Metamodern Sounds and Country Music, were essentially not just indie albums, but truly self-released albums. This one in particular was recorded and mixed in 5.5 days on, according to Sturgill, a $4,000 budget. Now, I assume that that's grossly exaggerating things a touch, but yeah, the first two albums got a lot of buzz and they were truly, truly kind of indie, kind of self-released, kind of independent. They got picked up by a British label called Loose Records. And these first two are really, truly, I hesitate to use the word Americana, but they are underground, self-made, for better lack of a word, country albums, and they completely blew up. And that doesn't really happen very often. Nashville is really a machine, as most people know. I look at Taylor Swift and Big Machine Records and all that. Sturgill he's almost like a guy who you saw on the street busking, and then next thing you know, his songwriting craft has just propelled him into the limelight. And it really is an interesting this album in particular was actually given the Grammy for the best Americana album in 2014. So there's that word. And then after the Metamodern Sounds, his third album was called A Sailor's Guide to Earth, and that was his first major release. That was on Atlantic Records. So, you know, as far as the remaining majors go, I mean, that's one of them. They've been around forever. I mean, that's the label that put out Ray Charles, that's one of the labels. And what's ironic about that, of course, is that year in 2016, and I specifically put all this in for you because I know you love Grammys and stuff. That year in 2016, he received the award for the best country album. So
The Grammy.
2014, yes, the Grammy.
Wow.
Now, what's ironic about that, and you can find this on YouTube, is Sturgill, he's a bit interesting. So apparently, ironically, having won the Americana Award, which he thought was kind of silly, and then winning the Best Country Award, he was not even at the Country Awards that year. So he took his Grammy, put it in an empty acoustic guitar suitcase, and busked at the Country Music Awards outside with the Grammy in the suitcase, like where you'd put spare change.
Well, I guess it fits because, he's often referred to, his music is referred to as a kind of a revival of outlaw country, like
Yep.
Waylon Jennings, Willie
Yep.
Nelson, that sort of era. And so it makes sense that he's outside the mainstream and an independent artist. So there you have it.
Yeah, and clearly like I mean the Grammys as OS is trying, but he finds it ironic because they're just I mean we should probably flash forward to the next album here. So his fourth album was actually a rock album. It was actually released on Netflix. Every song was an animated Japanese video, so a Japanese animated video. And he did not win a Grammy, but he was nominated for the best rock album.
Impressive.
Like you do. So, and then in 2020, he released two bluegrass records. Now, these are kind of considered outside the five albums. We'll get more on that in a second here. So, the two bluegrass records are cover albums of his own songs in bluegrass.
I see.
Cut, Cutting grass shows him on a lawnmower, like one of those fancy ones you ride on. And there's two volumes. And then his final album, The Dude and Juanita, came out in, I don't have the year, but it's supposed to be his last album. And I swear we're going to get into metamodern sounds of country music, but there's a lot of lore here with Sturgill. So,
Yeah. Well,
the,
tell me, I have a question for you. I'd love to know how you got into this because, like, I would like to think that both of us are very, hopefully, open-minded music, listeners,
yeah, yeah.
and we're always looking for the best to be found in any genre. But I think it's fair to say that country is a tough one for both of us traditionally.
Growing up in Ukiah, or in your case, Red Valley, even more rural. Yeah, I mean, it's not something you gravitate towards. I didn't own a pickup. You know,
Like, how did you hear this album? How did you find your way to it?
I don't even know. So, I mean, I'm going to plug a store in Ukiah that I guess is reopened. There's like a women's country fashion store, and they happen to be selling new vinyl. So I had heard it before, obviously, but I wanted to pick it up on vinyl. So I bought Metamodern from her because she was a big fan. Had a lot of, I think I got some Casey Musgraves too. I really like her as far as female country goes. Um, but yeah, I think that's where I finally picked it up. But where I first came across it or where I first heard it, I have no idea. No idea.
Well, because we grew up in the 80s, so we were growing up after sort of the outlaw country thing happened in the late 70s. And I mean,
More or less, it was dying down. Yeah.
it was dying down. And then, but when we were paying attention to music, it was 90s country, which was super slick, very theatrical. I'm thinking of like Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks kind of stuff.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I like that stuff sometimes. I went through
Sometimes.
a phase where I kind of got into some of those big 90s acts because it's just the music was irresistible in a
Yeah.
way. But then I completely lost interest for about 20 years. And
Yeah.
I've kind of picked up a little bit of, there are a few records that I love. I'm kind of getting back into it, dipping my toe. So the
Yeah.
time was good. I'm glad you picked this.
Yeah. This is a big portal, to say the least. And I'm gonna just go through this next part really quick so we can get into the album. But we got to cover this. Apparently, the rumor is that Sturgill, who actually kept saying in interviews, is that he was going to do five albums. So he has released his fifth album. We're not counting the two bluegrass ones. So I'm going to just start with Sturgill's own words here, which I can hopefully read. Says, yes, I'm only making five albums, and they all do serve a cohesive narrative of a life journey of a human soul from a traditional Western perspective. So High Top Mountain was the seminal album, or Past Life, You Can't Go Home. Metamodern Sounds in Country Music was ethereal, literally the soul's journey through space. A Sailor's Guide to Earth represents birth and life lessons learning them. The next one is going to be all about life and sin. So this is before he had released the rock one. And we're literally going to go to hell. And the fifth one will be Returning the Light, Absolution. So the concept that he has is, apparently, I've done a little bit of research. It's called Christian mysticism. So it's the steps of the soul. So there are five steps: awakening, uh, purgation, illumination, dark night of the soul, and the union with the other. So some people attribute this to Evelyn Underhill, who was a Christian pacifist. So I don't know if this is happenstance or whatnot, but people actually think that he's actually done. And there's a lot of hints too. But so what we're talking about today is the concept of purgation. And when it comes to meta modern sounds and country music, I don't think there's a more relevant album. This is the out for him. This is the one that like broke him. This is one got him into the majors. And this is the one that I think will stand up the test of time because the kind of concepts that he sings about and the discussions in the songs and the lyrical content are not things. I mean, you could call it a psychedelic country album,
Uh-huh.
but it would only be lyrically psychedelic. Uh, I think metaphysical is a better description.
Yeah.
Uh, what was your listenings to this like? How did you take this lyrically?
Yeah, well, okay. Here's my impression of it. So the song forms were for the most part pretty conventional.
Sure.
Definitely like the outlaw country late 70s kind of style. Really like it, really love the sound. I mean, you can't not like the sound of that opener, the Turtle song.
Yeah.
It's got the Tangled Up in Blue vibe a little bit, but I just, I love his voice. It was very easy to get into. And then I started hearing him sing about reptile aliens, and I thought, what is happening here? So then it started to make a little bit more sense because, like you said, it gets in this sort of metaphysical territory within
Yeah.
the very conventional song forms. And I'm like, okay, this is something I can kind of, but I have to tell you, I had some frustrations listening to it as well.
Sure, sure.
So I love his sort of understated vocal delivery. It's not always
Uh-huh.
understated. I mean, he hollers on this album too,
Yeah.
but it's fair to say that he mumbles
Sure, a
and
little bit.
swallows the consonants. And I'm not trying to be an old man here, but if the point of your music is the lyrics,
Yeah.
which there are some really interesting lyrics, I mean, I felt like I wasn't getting everything like I would if I were listening to Johnny
That's fair.
Cash or Waylon Jennings or something where just the Bakersfield sound or whatever, like
Mhm.
those words are just you the first time you hear the song, you know every word. This is
Yeah.
it was hard for me because I'm like, I have a feeling he's saying some really profound stuff. And I love the vibe, I love the sound, I love the forms. I just was like, it's almost like he doesn't trust his own words enough to sing them.
Probably so. I mean, this is still a pretty young performer at this time. He's just after his follow-up. I don't think he knew this was going to be as big as it was.
Right.
He certainly didn't be like, well, if I make this, this is going to be the start of my career and I'm going to get signed by Atlantic Records. So, but your point is fair. I think when artists hide their voice a little bit, like their lyrics that they wrote, I think it's done on purpose. But you already kind of threw out the name, but I'm gonna see if I can get you to do it again. When you heard this, did you have an outlaw country artist or anyone in mind that his singing reminded you of? Because certainly for me, it did.
I mean, definitely Waylon Jennings.
Yep,
I
done.
thought I thought Kenny Rogers in a couple places.
A little bit. I think Waylon is the nod he usually gets. Sometimes he gets a lot of kind of Merle Haggerty, but not like the voice. But I think immediately for me, especially at this era, he sounds like Waylon Jennings. I think he sounds like a better Waylon Jennings, personally. No offense to Waylon Jennings, I've never been a huge fan. But yeah, I think that's the name that comes out right away. It'd be impossible to not make that comparison. I think he's a better songwriter. Waylon wasn't really a songwriter, so
Well,
um,
here's the thing. I don't mean to disparage his
right.
vocals because that's one of the best things about the album. I
Yeah,
actually think that he emotes really
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And like on the Pan Bowl song when he's talking about his grandma, I mean that just,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
like, so it's not that the voice is, detached or
yeah.
that it's not connecting. I just was like, if you're talking about reptile aliens, I want to know exactly what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I don't know how far we're going to get into how metaphysical this album is, but that's Turtles All the Way Down, right? The
Yeah.
opener.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of people think that's the song. The actual first single was Living the Dream. But yeah, Turtles All the Way Down is probably one of the big points of this. If you're into the five album concept and you're
Sure.
into purgation, which is essentially if this is anything psychedelic, it's that because this is like the absence of the self. So for me, this gets pretty Eastern. I don't know much
Right.
about Christian mysticism, but I feel like it's a take on Eastern mysticism, kind of
Mhm.
westernized. But do you know anything about the turtles all the way down concept?
I mean, I looked it up because I was intrigued, and there was
Yeah,
definitely like an Indian, like as in a
yeah,
country of India. Uh, there was a term, I don't remember the term, but it had to do with nothingness
yeah.
and and
Infinite
the
regress.
infinite regress and the turtles, the you're always on top of a bigger turtle, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's an argument that is some people don't like. Essentially, you're using an argument that is, it's recursive. So if we were to make an argument that there is a turtle holding up the earth, and then we're trying to debate that and we're really getting heated about it. And all of a sudden I went, well, he's being held up by a larger turtle. And then you were like, well, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. I'd be like, you can't prove. We already reached the point where the turtle exists. So now I'm telling you that below that turtle is a bigger turtle. And then below that turtle is a bigger turtle. So it's using an argument recursively to support your argument. So, I mean, essentially, he's saying it's pretty Eastern, really. He's kind of saying that, it's all, where's the support or, I mean, it's been used by lots of sci-fi writers. It's just kind of this abstract. And that's one of the reasons why, lyrically, that's how this album starts off. And, when you think about country artists or country albums, I can't think of any other ones that want to talk about the purgation of the soul and that want to talk about things that are meta and, very modern. So he's really taking a strange intro on this one, especially.
Yeah.
And like you said, reptile aliens. And he talks about how can a drug, in this case DMT, be illegal when your brain makes it, and all these really interesting things. But I think the song, to get back to the meat of the song, is really actually a sweet song because he's talking about how, only love can change his heart and his mind, and nothing else has helped him. And he's singing about how, I mean, some real concepts in some really kind of strange stuff that would fit in with the Elevators or, early mid 60s crazy psychedelic bands,
Right.
So,
Well, and I think that we should give the whole Nashville scene a little bit of credit because
sure.
while this was on the outside, I mean, I was just in Nashville and I'm kind of fascinated by it at the moment, just the whole scene, the whole vibe. But he apparently did play the Opry eventually, and then
he did.
I think that there's a respect there that
Oh,
maybe out of the mainstream is willing to listen.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he actually, so he's from Kentucky. So a lot of people in country have been talking about the Appalachian sound when it comes to Sturgill. So, and he was in a band before he went solo. He was in a band called Someday Valley, and he's always been that first album. I would highly recommend you listen to High Top Mountain because on that album, he's got Nashville session guys. He's got Pig Robbins.
I did see that.
The Pig Robbins is then the guy that worked with Dylan. I mean, the guy that's worked with everyone. The guy that when he was a kid poked his own eye out with a knife and then went blind in the other eye. So he's the Stevie Wonder of country. If you don't know Pig Robbins,
can I ask a sidebar about
he's on
Pig
the Ween
Robbins?
album. What's that?
Oh, that's right. He is.
He's on the Ween album.
The Ween country album. So about Pig Robbins. So I was listening. This is a sidebar, and I'm sorry, but I was listening to Blonde on Blonde. I was listening to Sooner or Later, One of Us Must Know, and I was like, "This is the most electrifying piano I've ever heard on that song." I wonder if that was him.
On what song again?
Sooner or Later, One of Us Must Know. I think we need to do a little research after this. Maybe if someone knows, they could tell us in the comments, because if that's the same guy we're talking about, I saw his name on the liner notes.
What is this? What is the band?
So this was Blonde on Blonde when Dylan went down to Nashville to record.
Yeah, it's him.
Amazing.
I will stake a claim right now without even knowing for sure that it's him, because I remember when we were having a discussion about him years ago, probably, and I was like, "Yeah, he's on," and he's on everything. I have a tab here where I think I put everything he was. I think it's worth reading this list.
I'll make you a deal, Casey. I'll listen to Sturgill's first album if you go listen to Sooner or Later, One of Us Must Know.
Okay. I want to share the things that Hargus, that's his first name, Hargus Melvin Robbins has been attributed with on playing piano. Patsy Cline, Dolly Parton, Connie Smith, Patti Page, Loretta Lynn, Kenny Rogers, George Jones, Charlie Rich, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, J.J. Cale, John Hartford, John Stewart, Mark Knopfler, Alan Jackson, Merle Haggard, Roger Miller, David Allan Coe, Mo Bandy, George Hamilton IV, Sturgill Simpson, Conway Twitty, Ween, Al Hurt. That's Wikipedia for you. So he's a total legend, and he's blind. He's completely blind. So he's the country Stevie Wonder, for better lack of words.
But
I
he's
mean,
not on this album.
he's on the first album, and
First album.
So is Robbie Turner on steel guitar, and he's the former guitarist for Waylon Jennings.
Okay.
So yeah, he had some heavy hitters from the start, even though again, super indie release on self-released album. So I don't know how that happened, but this long get that I've been trying to say here is that he's from Kentucky. So Sturgill, I think that even though he didn't like the Americana label, he's actually brought forth the Americana sound. Like he doesn't shy away from fiddle. He doesn't shy away from bluegrass sounds. He put out two versions of essentially his own songs that are bluegrass because he's from Kentucky, and he's actually started producing other country artists. Like he produced Tyler Childers' first album, and all these guys, like even Luke Bryan, and I don't know much about him. They're all because of Sturgill. All these like actual country songwriters, singer-songwriters, they're all been kind of brought up under the Sturgill wing, and he's kind of moved on. I mean, essentially, his third album, Sailor's Guide to Earth, which I don't have, starts off with, so that would be the one about illumination, if you're into the 5 album steps. He has a son, and it starts with like him being illuminated and like believes like that his son being here is what, makes him love living and everything. It's really, I mean, he's really a touching artist. And that 5th album that just came out that's really short, apparently his last, it's all a theme album. So, and a really interesting theme, like heavy. If you like theme albums, Dude and Juanita is heavy theme. There's a whole story. It actually even has like an interlude. Like it's more like a show. And they should have probably made a short and put it on Netflix. And also the Rock album, I'm getting carried away here, but the Rock album is so amazing to watch. And he was his family were like coal miners and everything in Kentucky. And he, of course, had nothing going on. So he joined the Navy, and he was stationed in Japan for 3 years. So he's incredibly into Japanese culture, Japanese animation. So it makes perfect sense that he would make an album that was completely animated by Japanese artists. And it's very wild. And everyone in the country music scene was like, what is Sturgill doing? But he's doing what he wants to do. And that's what a real artist is,
Absolutely. That's great.
You can't be like, oh, I'm successful in this, so I have to keep doing this and make 10 copies of this album. And I think a lot of country artists do that, even the great ones. So,
but yeah, you get the sense he is a true artist. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a shame because apparently he's going to hold up this 5 album thing. Just because some off comments he made. Well, apparently while really high when he was 33 listening to Chris Christopherson.
Well, tell me, is there anything else you want to say about this particular, any other songs?
They're all good. Life of Sin is amazing. It's very Waylon-y. Living the Dream is great. Voices is very touching. I think we'd be very remiss if we didn't cover the 6th song and the opener to side B, The Promise by When in Rome, also known as the ending song of Napoleon Dynamite.
How much I was thinking about this. He's our age. He's 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think he probably heard that song the first time with Napoleon Dynamite like I did?
Well, I want to say that I remembered that song from the 80s, but of course, Napoleon Dynamite brought it to the forefront.
Yeah.
He does a great cover.
It's a great cover. And I was actually listening to it last night going, okay, this is fine. And then I was like, is he ever going to jump the octave? Is he ever going to go for that? Because I could hear it in my head. I'm like, he's got to jump the octave because his high voice is so incredible. And he just waits and waits and waits until finally that last chorus, he goes up. And I'm like, that needs to be like, that must have been a needle drop for like prestige TV shows. And like, it's a moment.
Yeah. Actually, this album had so many songs that were famous in shows because it was that crossover period with Netflix and everything. If you read the Wikipedia, it's actually pretty crazy because you can picture the drama some of these songs on some things, and I didn't want to get into that, but yeah, it's true. This album made him some money.
Well, you
It did,
think about, yeah,
big time.
you think about the production on that one and how powerful it is and emotive it is. And I'm like, he did it in 4 days.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. It's wild, and then the rest of it's really, really good. Boy, my notes here are pretty sloppy, but A Little Light is a great actual like gospel spiritual that really lightens the album.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
the one that I thought sounded like Kenny Rogers.
yeah. And then It Ain't All Flowers. The end one's really great. My handwriting is awful here on this. But yeah, I mean, the whole album is just fantastic. It's my favorite Sturgill Simpson, and I really, really like the first one. The only other one I have is the rock one, and I do like it, but it's not the same. It's not quite the
And
same.
I gotta respect an album that's what, 35 minutes?
Yeah, it's a pop album, right? I'm surprised the Grammys didn't give him the best pop album.
I mean, let's bring it back here. Like I was listening, I was trying to go back when we talked about Herbie Hancock. I went and saw there was a this is another sidebar. I saw there was a Vince Gill album that
Mhm.
year. What I don't know, 2004, whatever it was. Anyway, that was up for album of the year and I was like, "What's this? I never heard of it." That thing was like 4 album lengths. I mean, that was what anyway, it was just such this sprawling collection of songs. Don't get me wrong, it was impressive, but I couldn't even begin to get through it. And then you
Yeah,
look at this and I'm like, this is why vinyl, the limitations of vinyl, like give me that 35, 40 minutes.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, two sides, two sides. I always used to say that vinyl was perfect because I could put a record on and I could do something, and then I also had to attend to it enough so that I had to tend to paying attention to it.
Yep,
So, because you could put on digital music and it'll just go endlessly, and Spotify's predicting what you like, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is great, but it's not you. I'd rather have something that I tangibly found or dug and or someone told me to get. And
sure.
I use Spotify a lot now too, but I still like the heavy format.
Physical
Lit-
connection. Cool, man.
Actually, we got two records up here in the background. One day when the lighting's better in here, people will figure out what those are.
I have no idea. I cannot see
Yeah,
that.
well, I'll give you only one clue. These are both Nigerian records, and they're by the same artist. So,
Is
and
this
they're
the is
Nigerian
this the,
press.
is this the witch out the witch group?
No, no, not Witch. Witch is Zambian.
Oh, okay.
Yep. You're getting your Afrobeat mixed up. So
All right. Is it time to move on to my next pick?
yeah, well, I mean, I I I'm not gonna harp on you here because I'm sure you listen to this. I'm sure you listened to this a few times. But honestly, I definitely want you to give it another spin because this is the kind of album that takes probably more like 10 spins. But also, you got more homework because I think you're gonna like the first one more, High Top Mountain. Um,
Okay.
it's more country. It's more bluegrass too.
Okay.
And also there's some great performances. He's a great performer, and you always got to have that element too. And I'll just leave it at that.
And pigs on it.
I don't know if there's any live. Yeah, Pig Robbins is on the first album. Yep. And there's more steel guitar. So it's a more country album actually.
Yep. All right. I'll listen to it. And you gotta go
Cool.
listen to that Dylan. All right.
Yeah,
Coming up
yeah, one
next.
awesome. Mhm.
That was a good pick. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for
Yeah, it's good.
introducing me to something new. I'm going to go with the Napoleon Dynamite Connection. So you probably know what's coming. Can you guess?
Well, I mean, I guess I would guess when in Rome, but so I guess I'm gonna go with Jamiroquai.
No, 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 no. I'm talking about
I didn't think you had Jamiroquai. Oh, okay. Now
Elvis Costello, aka Declan McManus, aka Napoleon Dynamite,
Dynamite.
aka
Wow,
let's see.
deep cut.
This cover painting was done by Napoleon Dynamite, aka Iman Singer. Apparently, that's his. Iman Singer is apparently Elvis Costello's art alter ego. But anyway, this
Oh, okay.
Blood and Chocolate. It's from
Yeah,
1986. I'm not sure that it's often cited as a great Elvis Costello album, but boy, I sure think it's great.
I
It's a,
know it. I know this album. I know this one.
Okay, I didn't realize that you knew it as well.
I do. I do.
Okay.
Uh, I
Well,
think
I think it
I'll leave anything
I
next
think
time.
it deserves more attention than it gets.
Oh
It's
yeah. Yeah,
raucous,
yeah.
it's wild, it is melodic, it just blows my mind. So,
Yes, yes. And
all
it's
right.
got that one crazy song. Is it I Love You or what is it?
Oh, I
What
want
is it? I Want You. Yes, yes.
that
That's
is
a top 10 Elvis
that's a
Costello.
that's a killer song. Yeah,
It
cool.
is.
Well,
It
I'm
is.
glad you know it, but hopefully we'll maybe get someone else interested in it too.
I'm pretty sure I sent that to you.
You did. Almost everything I have is from you. So.
Right, right. All right, cool. Great. Good
All right.
episode.
Bye.